It's a really good story. I never get tired of telling it. Legend shit, you know? Well, January the 3rd, 1995. I remember.
I worked with Russ Cole for 7 years.
What do you know about him, Marty?
Good detective.
Doesn't care about making friends. People change. You're obsessive.
You're obsessive, just not about the job.
Relationships change.
You need to tell me what's going on.
How many times have we had this conversation, detectives? Nothing ever changes. This is a world where nothing is solved.
There is a war happening.
What have you been doing, Marty?
This is Case. You know the pressure we got on us.
You used to not be such a chicken shit, I swear.
You know why the story's always the same, 17 years gone? Because it only went down the one way.
Everybody knows there's something wrong with them. Everybody's got a choice.
You sure you want to do this?
Not exactly. Everybody wants confession, and everybody's guilty.
Hi everyone and welcome once again to Geekfest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and today we are coming back to you with part 2 of our True Detective Season 1 review. Returning, I have Tom LaSousa, and we will continue trying to pick apart this new fantastic HBO series. Let's pick it up where we left last week. Now, here's the thing, while all this is happening, and even since the beginning of the series, the first episode, I'm always in let's try to figure this out mode. And a show that's this smart and this good, I'm like, all right, suspect number 1 is Rust. Suspect number 2 is Marty. So I kept going back and forth. Marty,
Sure.
Rust, Marty, because they all have so many demons in them that it's good material to make them at some point. If they wanted to have a nice, crazy twist ending, you could make them the bad guy throughout
Right.
all these periods in time. You know, you could even say maybe the wife was the one that's going, you know, she's doing it, you know, to get back to, you know, some weird stuff like that. But as we're progressing, I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then I'm thinking, well, that would be an interesting twist because they're setting you up really nice. But it would be a little disappointing too because you kind of like these characters. You don't want them to be bad guys.
Right, absolutely.
So then I start to kind of look at different people that we encounter that they give us enough material on them, but not too much. So I start thinking, well, what about some of the captains, have some of the bosses, and some of the suspects? You're meeting them. A lot of them end up in jail. And at one point, they even interview the guy on the lawnmower. And, you know, you're like, well, you know, he seems a little kind of weird, but he seems kind of harmless weird, like,
Sure.
like a little slow type of guy. And, you know, it kind of, okay, let's move on to the next thing. So we continue now with the 2012 time period where Marty is approached by Rust, and Rust is, okay, you know, we need to talk because we got to hash this out. Apparently they haven't talked in years, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. And since that day, they have not been in contact with each other. They've been doing their own separate things. Marty had actually opened up a private investigator business. They have just been completely detached from each other. And even Marty has almost no communication with his former family at this point.
Right. And the cops are really starting to suspect Rust.
Yes.
Just like the audience might be suspecting Rust, because apparently they have pictures of him showing up at crime scenes, kind of poking around.
Showing up at that crime scene, which is what we saw the pictures at the very beginning of when they showed him, and he was like, oh, it started again. And we see that next one. And sure enough, there he is. They've got pictures of him at those crime scenes. So clearly, even though he's been, kind of down and out, the demon of this unsolved case has not escaped him. And so it's always been there. And so
he seems to be worse than ever before. I mean, before he was, I guess at least he was holding down a job and being able to maintain something. But now he looks like he's out, living practically out of his car or something. Right. And, he's still having these weird hallucinations from all his problems and from all the drugs and from this and that. And then he tells Marty, basically, I think I have something and I think I found something. Come meet me by this storage facility.
Right. And that's when you see the very, he opens up the storage facility and you see it, and there was very cleverly off to the side, there was a cot. So he's sleeping in there, and then of course you have that very the truth is out there X-Files-y moment
type of room where everything's on the walls.
Everything is on the wall. There's just pictures of everything, and there's just, there's evidence all over the place, and it's just, with the string attached to this and this, and it was just, I was like, oh my God,
and Marty really is like, you know what, this is just too much. I'm done with all this.
Sure, until, of course, he shows him the videotape. And when he admits that he broke into the Tuttle house and, and he stole these things. And
now the tape it's the MacGuffin, basically.
Yes.
Because not only is it thing that convinces just about anybody who sees that tape of what actually is happening, but the audience only gets to see a very small portion of it. And I'm glad they did it that way because
absolutely,
it's a trick that they use a lot of times and it worked perfectly here. And that is, don't show it. The reaction to people watching it, the retching, disgusting, stomach curling reactions that you get from the few people who view this tape.
Sure.
It tells you everything that's going on that tape.
Absolutely. And of course, it turns out, one of the sub-mysteries of the story, of course, is that aside from the initial murder that we had, there was also that missing, was it Lachlan girl? Or I forget what her name was. But that, of course, 20 some odd years later, everybody's like, oh, no, the little girl, she ended up moving away with her father. And of course, now we see that's the little girl in the video. She's been gone all this time. And as you said, it was the right thing to do, not only because it would have just been over the top to have actually gone forward and shown us that, but by not showing that and by giving us the emotional reactions, they delivered so much more that way. First off, like you said, Woody Harrelson's character's reaction, and then later on when they're investigating their former colleague and now the sheriff of that township, and they pan away from the boat, and all of a sudden
you just hear the screaming.
That screaming, that horrific screaming, and you're like, oh my God, are they killing him? Or, and then nope, he's just seeing the tape. He's watching the tape, and it's just this horrible, horrific reaction to that.
Yeah, that was just incredible, that scene. And again, it's cool that they didn't have to show you. They didn't have to go all, Saw on you.
Right, absolutely.
And
even
Gorefest.
It harkened back to Seven. Again, another great film with another
What's in the box?
What's in the box? And, everybody at that scene, those three people see and know what's in the box, but we never see it, but we don't have to. And all just based on the reaction from Brad Pitt's character is all that we need. And that's also another very fantastic, detective-y type show. And I think, and it seems like that could also have been an inspiration for this series as well.
You might be right. So by finally getting this evidence, I guess, Rust prepares himself to be able to start confronting people with it, and he prepares ahead of time. I love the fact that he has like multiple tapes wrapped up, ready to be mailed out everywhere, and all the evidence. There's like 10 copies going to all the papers in case somebody tries to kill him, especially that sheriff, because that sheriff, I don't think he was involved in what happened, but he kind of looked the other way to allow other people to do certain things.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
There was at least not investigate.
There was definitely there's powerful people in this town, and they're telling me to, whether they handed him money or they just said turn the other way, he was a doof. He did what he was told. And of course, then I think that, again, going back to that scream, I think that scream was the realization of, this is what I reap now from my turning a blind eye.
Yeah.
And of course, then we get to...
Well, remember, at some point, they bring everything out of that storage facility, and they kind of open an office. They go into an actual storefront where they can properly investigate and start investigating some more, completely on their own.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I think that was Marty's private investigation office.
Oh.
I think that's what it was.
Oh, that's what it was. That's where he kept all his files and stuff.
Right,
probably.
right.
Okay,
exactly.
That makes sense. And yeah, he calls as many favors as he can, trying to get new leads and new information. And out of somewhere, they find something having to do with a house being painted.
Yes.
And whether or not the house was painted. And then they start thinking, let's go talk to so-and-so, the woman who used to babysit, I guess, for the Tuttles.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
And they start talking about the different kids, and they talk about, is there one kid that had, because the little girl that the one about the spaghetti hair, whatever, she said that the
face
had scars on his face.
The picture, the description that they had gotten from one person early on,
one of the survivors, was it?
Right, was the man with the green ears and the scars on the bottom of the face. And you looked at it, and initially, what I thought was very interesting was, and I'm sure that they did this on purpose, to kind of connect with this whole paganistic, cult, that visual of that sketch very much looked like the old man of the forest that is usually associated with pagan religions.
Okay.
The man of the green, and and it's like, a green face with a beard and stuff like that. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's exactly where I thought they were going. I was like, oh, wow, they're really tying into this. But of course, we find out there's a very logical reason for the green ears, and a very logical reason for what this person thought was sort of a weird spaghetti-like beard was, in fact, it wasn't Cthulhu, and it wasn't the man of the green. It was the gentleman with the scars on his face and stuff
right,
like that.
and I believe, if you remember, when we first meet him, not knowing who he was, I guess we can call the Lawnmower Man.
The Lawnmower Man, yes.
He had the ear protectors.
Right.
I don't know if they were green or not, but he also had a slight beard, so you couldn't really see the scars.
Couldn't see the scars.
The way
exactly.
they shot him, and Rust was talking to him, but Marty was back in the car.
Right.
And even Rust said, I saw this guy, I talked to him, but I didn't make the connections because he didn't see his cheeks. He didn't see the scars. But what they do is they go visit, I guess, the babysitter that used to watch the kids for Tuttle, and they get down to the point where was there one kid, was there one grandkid, or one of these kids because the guy had lots of kids who apparently, I guess was a little bit of a wild kid, and I don't know if he used to kill animals or something or whatever. And the lady says, he had scars on his face.
Scars on his face,
okay,
absolutely.
here we go. Now we got to go find this guy. And then, that's when everything connects. All the connections get made. And it's a race to find this guy because they kind of know, they start doing the legwork. Again, the detective work, all that sifting through tax records and this and that, and where did he live, and the parents live here, and yada, yada, yada. So they all go down there. Just these two guys to come and meet this guy.
Oh, yes.
But before they get there, we get a little preview of what's happening in this house. And this is, again, you're talking like Silence of the Lambs territory here.
This is where I start to, and this is where one of my issues comes up. And again, loved the series, absolutely would watch it again in a heartbeat. I probably would in a few weeks. I'd probably start the whole damn thing over again. But this was one of the things that I found a little bit of a letdown, in the finale.
What's that?
And I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use it, the white trash villain. What do we see? We see a broken down old house, filled with disgusting hoarding, taxidermy things and all sorts of crazy stuff. And, and to me, I was like, oh, it kind of looks like House of a Thousand Corpses or, I half expect, a couple of teenagers to come running out or something like that,
Now, explain to me something. Who exactly was that woman living there that the guy is, that at first you're like, is that his mother or is it a sister? But she kind of treats them like a son.
It was his mentally disabled half-sister.
And then what he starts doing to her, you're like, oh my God, this is just out there.
Right. And again, that kind of, to me, it hit me. I was like, okay, here we go.
I love the fact that he was watching TV all the time and kept watching that movie and kept talking like, was it Cary Grant?
Cary Grant, I believe it was. Yes, exactly.
And he was like, I'm like, is that his real accent or is he mimicking something? Because it's like, this guy is just completely out of his skull.
Right, absolutely. And another friend brought up a good point. And when I was complaining to them about him, I said, I just kind of felt like this was a little too formulaic. Like it was a little too obvious to see the backwater creepy guy that, that could have been Texas
Chainsaw Massacre.
Right, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or like you said, like Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill. And, and he was like, and he brought up a point. He's like, yeah, but unfortunately, he said, think about it this way. He said, every stereotype has been done at this point now, and I said,
you either make it the flamboyant rich guy who doesn't, you could never suspect would get his hands dirty, or the completely filthy, guy who lives in the woods.
Or the middle class guy who lives in a perfect little house with a perfect little family. Meanwhile, he's got a secret chamber down it. Right.
Or the cops.
Or the cops. Right. So I get that. But it just kind of felt to me, I was like, oh, okay, I haven't seen this before. Oh, wait, yes, I have. So
that didn't bother me at all.
Interesting. Okay.
As much as it did you. I'll tell you what bothered me the most, and it's something really stupid.
Okay.
It's the last episode. They're going to encounter this guy. They're going to confront him.
Sure.
They get there. Matthew McConaughey, Rust, steps out of the car.
Right.
And he's wearing a white shirt.
Okay.
The white shirt bothered me more than anything in the entire series because to me, when it's the last episode of a show and somebody's wearing a white shirt, that shirt is going to end up very red because that person will either die or something's going to happen that's going to be drenched in blood.
Right.
So I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Give him a green shirt. Give him a blue shirt. What's his face? Marty had regular clothes.
Had regular clothes, absolutely.
Why on earth would this guy, specifically this character, wear a white crisp shirt?
Another thing that I found a little annoying, and I guess this is more the overreaching, when you think about things afterwards. And I was like, so our bad guy is connected to the Tuttle family. He and his family, they're an offshoot of his father was Sam Tuttle.
Right, and he had already died.
Right, he'd already died. His body was lying there, and everything like that. And so
now, was that Tuttle on the bed?
That wasn't Reverend Tuttle. That was Sam Tuttle. He was connected to the Tuttle family.
Okay.
And this was the thing that kind of annoyed me was that, so this is sort of an offshoot of the family, but kind of forgotten. And, and as a matter of fact, we've had enough family records and everything to the Reverend Tuttle and have covered it up enough. And part of me is like, So if you've covered this up and you've basically wiped away every connection whatsoever you have with this complete lunatic, why are you still protecting them? Why are you still letting this go? Why are you even letting this all still happen? I mean, you could very easily just, if you're this connected, why are you not even just taking him out? I mean, the Reverend, why are you not just killing?
Clean up all the loose ends.
Killing him, right. So, I mean, and of course somebody speculated, well, maybe the Reverend was, of course, one of those individuals in the video that we just never saw.
That's what I think. I think because this took place so long ago, long ago in the story, that they were all connected. They all dipped into that in one point or another. It was like a family thing to do, I guess, or something.
Yes.
And like we said before, I'm like, okay, well, they're going to kill somebody.
Sure.
They're going to kill somebody. They're going to kill somebody. And to me, it looked like they were getting very, very, because of the white shirt and what happened, eventually he gets shot.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, they're going to kill him. And it's interesting, right before he gets shot, he looks up in the sky and he sees this very swirly galaxy type of thing where he completely gets distracted and the guy comes and
gets him, right.
Stabs him or something like that.
And that is what is being argued is on several of the boards. That is being argued as the one true supernatural moment. A lot of people are arguing that was not one of his delusional visions, that in fact, that if Marty was in there at that moment, he would have seen the same thing, and that in fact, that was the missing Carcosa that was called seeing, some strange, horrific truth or something like that.
Right.
So, but you did.
But at the same time, if they're telling you, again, if I listen to the writer says there's no supernatural elements.
Right.
I'm going to go with the theory that what he sees is because he's just nuts and he's just nuts. That's what he's seeing. But it's also interesting that they also chose at the end, not only not to kill him, but he survives this attack and he tells Marty about how either right before he was hurt or as he was hurt, he felt his daughter.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting thing to do because for that particular character, they're not saying, he saw God or he had a vision of some religious thing, but he said he just felt her love. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting thing because you don't have to really take sides here. You're not picking and choosing. You're saying something happened to him that he can't explain or doesn't want to explain that is changing him.
Right. Right. And at first, I will admit wholeheartedly, the very first minute when I heard that, I was like, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Stay jaded still. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Realistically, let's look at this.
I don't think he's going to become a pastor.
No. But realistically, I mean, let's look at this the way it is. He had a near-death experience. Something like that is going to affect people in different odd ways. Did he really connect with the spirit of his daughter? Did he really feel her love? Or was it the lack of oxygen and the synapses shutting down in his body, and endorphins or something like that kicked in and gave him this sensation? Who knows what? But whatever has happened, it has. I mean, again, like you said, he's not about to become a pastor, and he's certainly not.
And from the viewer, from the audience member, you don't know. He then chooses to believe what he wants to believe or not believe. It's his responsibility to do what he wants to do with that knowledge.
Right. Going back to one other thing, your annoyance was the white shirt.
Yeah.
My annoyance was, we were just watching, just watching Grey's Anatomy or something like that. And, when a character was brought into the ER, and was either accidentally stabbed or accidentally shot or something like that. And one single puncture to their intestines. And unfortunately, because the intestines were punctured, that's it. This person wasn't coming back. Meanwhile, the bad guy takes his knife. Basically, he should have technically been completely disemboweled.
That was. I did not think he was going to recover from that. No way.
And then he picks Russ Hope holding the knife. He's holding him in midair, moving the knife around. I'm like, oh, come on, really? There's no way. There is no way at all. You should be alive after this one. That bothered me a little bit. That was a little. To me, that was a little bit more suspension of belief on that one. But, okay, whatever. And then, of course, Marty took an axe to a chest. I was like, oh, God. Really?
That's right. He threw that out.
Gosh, gee. But, I could accept that the axe hit him in the chest. Although that was quite a good shot. For somebody who's, but okay. It was probably a superficial wound. But yeah, to see Russ being held up by this guy and the guy's twisting the knife as he's holding him up midair.
That's something out of a slasher film.
That was a little hard for me to accept that we're recovered after this. But after that, moving past that, the ending and I liked the fact that there was a reconciliation between Marty Marty and his family. I mean, obviously, they're not going to be a perfect family, but it was very sweet. It was very, very sweet. And I kind of felt like that was his reward. That was his reward, to have at least some sort of a connection back to his family.
Definitely.
As a matter of fact, I guess they kind of both got some sort of a if you accept that Russ did in fact have that moment with the spirit of his daughter, then I guess they both kind of got their families back in some existential way.
They wrapped it up in an acceptable manner, I guess. I could have also swore I heard somewhere that, another reason you might not want to kill either one of these characters is because at some point you might want to bring them back as either a cameo or a guest appearance. They're definitely not doing an entire season. They already said we're not coming back for season 2 or anything. But at a future point, I think the writer said that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to one day bring one guy back as a cameo.
Sure. Absolutely.
I don't know who the next batch of detectives are going to be or any of that, but, they got something good here and I hope they can maintain it. And I hope it's not the type of thing where they're just going to repeat the same formula every season.
I hope not. Especially, I would certainly hope that they don't give us another season of little dangles of, hopefully they don't find yet another book or something like that to give us this. I would love it if next season, give us something straightforward. Give us a straightforward murder mystery, but tell it well. Tell a good, solid story. Give us all the answers. Then the season after that, go ahead, try something crazy again. I mean, hell, bring a supernatural element into that one.
Right. Or when you're ready to wrap up the entire series, season whatever, 5, 6, then do a part 2 to this. Continue hunting down the rest of that group.
Right. Exactly.
That would be nice. But, unfortunately, this is going to take forever to come back because it's so short, and I imagine it's got to be at least a year away from when we get the next
I would
batch.
think so. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, overall, I guess it's not difficult to tell that we both kind of like this show.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And certainly willing to go and watch it again. So I'd say that's a good endorsement there.
And it's funny because I've been watching lately some shows that are, I guess you can call them in this vein, if you will. Right. I've been watching Hannibal, which is very graphic and very crazy in terms of, the crime involved in it. And up to that point, I was like, you know what? Hannibal is probably the best crazy show out there in terms of how nuts it gets with the particular crimes being committed. And then when this came on, it was like, oh, forget it. This blows even Hannibal away. It was
absolutely.
Amazing. Well, Tom, any last words? Not that we haven't had enough words.
Right, exactly. I can't, other than, now actually, I'm just going to go ahead and read The Yellow King now at this point now. So
as a matter of fact, you mentioned before that you've gotten some copies. I was able to find it, I believe, on iTunes Books. It's free. You can download it free on a lot of different platforms. I think even Kindle or iTunes or iBooks or whatever the heck that stuff is called. They're free. I guess, I don't know if they're public domain books, but they're not charging for them.
Well, it's certainly, I'm sure it's doing a heck of a job for Ambrose's posthumous career at this point now.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure the people Googling the name and all that stuff in the past couple of weeks have been going insane.
Definitely.
Well, thanks again, Tom, for joining me today. This has been a great conversation, and I hope that we can get together again and hit another one of these crazy topics. So on behalf of everybody, we will see you here next time at Geekfest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
And when you find a piece of them in your side.
Marty was a good man when I met him. And he was still a good man most of the time. This job. It confused him and it tested him. It tested things in him that should have never been tested. Brought out the worst in him. Marty's single big problem was that he never really knew himself. So he never really knew what to want. Russ's problem was sort of the opposite of Marty's. I mean, Russ knew exactly who he was, and there was no talking him out of it. Russ was maybe the least confused person I've ever met. But he had his own problems. Memory is a slippery transaction. When someone's telling you the truth, it's their truth, isn't it?
Stop.